So let me get the others in here.
Hello.
So
Let's see if I can share your screen, entire screen, this one, share. Cool. Can you see my screen? You guys see my screen? Hello.
Oh, I was muted. Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, cool.
Sarah,
So,
is your mic working?
I believe so now, yes.
All right. Are you going to monitor the questions?
she has Mary coming over, so she may have to run. So we'll start in about 2 minutes. I just wanted to make sure I had all my ducks in line. So right now, what you guys see on the screen is 3CX On-Call Manager introductions. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool. All right, so far I can see of our staff, Adam and Sarah. Sarah may be dropping off in a little bit. Attendees, I see Jake, Joe, and Michael. So thank you guys for coming. As I mentioned, we'll start in about a minute. I appreciate you guys taking some of your day to spend with us. This is automatically recorded, so we'll keep track of who the attendees are and make sure that you get a copy of this recording. We'll also have it on our website in several days after the webinar. We'll put a link to the webinar on our webinars page of our website. We set up a new link on our website for so that you can sign up for scheduled webinars or take a look at previous webinars. So for 3CX partners, you can send your customers there. For customers, you can just go straight there by yourself. All right, well, it's that time, and I'm kind of a punctual guy, so I think we should go ahead and get started. So first, my name is Matthew Orr. I am the owner and founder of VoIPTools and chief architect of our applications. Sarah is new to our company. She used to have the last name of Orr, but has long since gotten married and had a family of her own, but she's one of the clan. Adam is also one of my sons, so it is very much a family owned business, but we have a large team of developers both here in the United States, Hyderabad, India, and Delhi, India. And just so you know, we flew to India, acquired a building, hired employees. So our developers in India are actually our employees. They aren't outsourced to a consulting firm, by the way. So again, thank you for those of you who have attended. Oh, so let's go ahead and kind of start talking about the subject matter of why On-Call Manager exists. The general topic of today's meeting is how do we handle on-call requests that come outside of regular business hours? And So let's start talking about what some of the primary challenges are with doing this. If you're using a traditional service, there's certainly a significant cost to doing that as your organization grows. And I can give you an example in that my sister is a physician and she has a practice group that includes pediatrics, ears, nose, and throat, internal medicine, obstetrics, etc. And all of those groups of doctors have their own specialty. So if you have an answering service, you're going to pay separately for each one of those groups. And the typical cost, last I checked, was between $80 and $150 a month. So very quickly you can get into the $400 or $500 a month if you have an organization that has multiple groups. The other thing is that managing the on-call schedule is sometimes problematic because you'll have to upload a spreadsheet to the answering service, and they will from time to time get the wrong schedule in front of them, and so they'll call the wrong people. And so managing that whole process of keeping the answering service up to date with your schedule, and people have sick leave and vacations and holidays, it's not at all straightforward. The other thing is notifying the right people at the right time. So needing the ability to support multiple groups and have specific groups get notified. Also making sure that the notifications are received. So having multiple channels like phone, email, SMS, text message. Just a telephone call may not be sufficient. And then what do you do when somebody doesn't respond? Well, now you've got the answering service going on that schedule and starting to call people, and let's hope that schedule's up to date. The other thing that we might want to do is to keep track of how staff are performing. Do we have any staff that are just, I'm on call, but I'm just not going to do it? Or customer says, I called at 10 o'clock at night. You've got an SLA of 30 minutes. Nobody called me back for 2 hours. So kind of monitoring that kind of thing. And then choosing between live answer and voicemail. And oftentimes it's a one or the other, but wouldn't it be nice if you could do a live answer that then fails over to voicemail, and then once it hits voicemail, do escalation. So we can talk a little bit about that. But what can you do with 3CX right out of the box without VoIPTools, without anything else? So as a long time 3CX partner, I monitor all of the forum posts that go on the 3CX website. And we can kind of talk about some of the approaches that have been discussed on the forums and what I've experienced working with customers. And one option is to have a support cell phone that you hand from person to person every day. That's obviously not ideal because it has some problems. What if you leave work or you're working in a job site and you don't get back to the office, so you can't pick up the phone? Or what if the person on the previous shift doesn't come back to the office? How do you get the phone? So it's a problematic thing. The other thing is that if you're dealing with a phone, there really isn't much room for escalation. So if that phone dies, for example, in the middle of the night, well, what do you do? So again, we want to look at how, if all you have is a cell phone, how do you get multiple channels? And what do you do if they don't answer the first time? How do you try again? So that's some of the challenges. Another approach would be to simply route the inbound calls after hours to the cell phone of whoever's on call. So it's it's similar to the first choice, but instead of passing a phone around, somebody has to be responsible for managing that inbound rule. But of course, we're human beings. What happens if somebody forgets to update the route? And this also requires that you give somebody access to the 3CX management console, and that may be problematic. Another approach would be to forward inbound calls after hours to a dummy extension. And then in the forwarding rules of that dummy extension, route to different locations. Of course, you have to remember to change the present status of that phone. So that can be a problem. The last option would be to do something like we've done, which is build a custom call flow designer application. But of course, that requires a significant amount of technical expertise and a lot of time. We've been building our solution for, I don't know, 6, 8 years. So trying to approach what we've done with On-Call Manager, which is a combination of services and web interfaces and call flow designer applications, would be a pretty significant investment. So why don't we go ahead and get started with taking a look at how we've addressed these issues with On-Call Manager. So let me drag this guy over here so you can take a look. So this is our little side panel, and if you'll see, we're starting to amass quite a number of tools in our suite of tools. So here's On-Call Manager. This is one of these many tools that we have. So I'll hide that and we'll log in. How are we doing for size? This is kind of small. Maybe I should make it bigger. Let's see if I can make it a little bigger so it's a little easier to see. We'll try that. All right, so the first thing that you would do when you set up On-Call Manager is to identify those people who are going to be resources available to schedule for being on call and how they want to be notified, by extension, by cell phone, by email, by SMS. And the assumption is that these are employees, and as employees, you can ask them who your cell phone carrier is. In the United States, pretty much every cell phone carrier has an email to SMS gateway. And the way that you send an SMS is to simply send an email. So you'll see the email format is you start with your cell phone number, and then the @ sign, and then the domain name that your carrier is using for their email to SMS gateway. So in this case, Verizon uses vtext.com. By taking this approach, we simplify the logic of On-Call Manager, and you don't have to set up a gateway of any kind. So this is just a very simple way of sending SMS text messages. If you look at the next columns here, the light gray section is what happens when a new call comes in. Do you want to be notified by a phone call, by an email, by an SMS text message? And then the darker gray columns talk about how you want to be notified if somebody has already answered the call. So in other words, if you have multiple people on call for the same date and time, you might have multiple people that are taking those calls. And if somebody gets it before you do, you want to be notified, hey, don't get out of bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody else has already handled it. You can go back to sleep. So in that scenario, I typically suggest you don't check the checkbox for call, simply because you don't need to wake up the whole family just to let you know that somebody else handled it, and you don't need to do anything. So I typically would uncheck the call setting. All right. Any questions to this point? All right, so then let's kind of move on. Where did I go? I'm dragging things around on the screen and I lost my web page. Let's see if we can't get that guy back. There we go. Okay, so we've got the people that are available to be assigned to be on call. One of the things we didn't talk about though is this first column here for group. So this is where in 3CX you would create a group using my sister's practice as an example, would be to create a group of pediatric doctors and a group of orthopedic doctors and a group of obstetrics doctors, so forth. And by selecting this group assigned to these people, then when you go into the scheduler, I can go here and select that group. And let's see if I have anybody assigned to this group. It doesn't look like I do. Well, we'll just choose default for now. Okay, so you can see that Samuel is a member of this group and Matthew's a member of this group. And the way that you would assign a person to be on call is either to select a particular, I'm going to shrink this up because it's a little too hard to see. I'm going the wrong way. Here we go. How big can I go? Okay. It's kind of hard to see though at that size, but so you just select the time of day that you want, but most of the time you can just simply go here and choose new all day event. And here you can do, I'm going to be level 1. That's kind of small to see, yeah? I'm going to get that a little bit bigger. Get it to go to the right direction. Okay, so I'll go do level 1. This is Samuel. He's on call level 1. This is just a label that displays on the calendar. This is the one that really actually specifies what level you are. Levels means who's going to be called first in level 1. If they don't respond and you escalate to level 2, that's how you can do this. So you can have as many people as you want in a given level, and you can have up to 30 levels of escalation. All right, and then let's choose reoccurrence. So here, let's say that I'm on call every 3rd week, and I'm on call Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And I will say, okay. And now when I look at the calendar and go to the month view, you can see that I'm every other, there's another schedule here. So that's why it looks a little funky, because I didn't go and clear out previous schedules. But you get the idea, right? That it's pretty easy to set up a reoccurring schedule. And let's delete this one here so that you can see it really work. And I will delete this series. Okay. In fact, let's start over from scratch. Delete the series. Delete the series. There. Delete the series. Okay, cool. So now when I go back to work week and I click on, today's Thursday, right? So we'll click on there, new all day event, level 1. Select the level 1 here. Hit reoccurrence, choose weekly, go to every 3 weeks, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay. Now when I go to the month view, every 3rd week, right? Now if I want to set up somebody for level 2, in case I don't answer, I would come in here and I would right mouse click and choose new all day event and then choose level 2. And This is a label. You can put whatever you want in there. And I chose Wednesday up there, which was kind of a mistake, but okay. Every 3 weeks. Weekly, every 3 weeks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Choose OK. Go to the month view. And now you'll see that we've got Samuel scheduled as level 1 and Matthew scheduled as level 2 for the same days. So setting up a reoccurring appointment on this calendar is very simple. Basically, you set up your schedule and you set it and forget it. You don't really have to come in here and muck with this unless somebody goes on vacation, and then you can do exceptions and that kind of thing. All right, so we have who's going to be a potential candidate. We have a schedule. Now let's take a look at settings. We'll go into general settings. Any questions so far? I will keep going. So can you see the screen? I'm going to try and zoom in here so that you can see it a little bit better. So a call comes in. Let's say that you have on-call manager configured to monitor a voicemail box as opposed to live answer. Call comes in, says, sorry, our office is closed. If you need technical support, press 1. They press 1. That says, please leave a brief description of your issue and your telephone number, and we'll get back with you within the SLA period, whatever you've specified. So they leave a voicemail. As soon as on-call manager detects that a new voicemail has been left in the monitored voicemail box, it's going to start sending out notifications to the person or persons that's scheduled to be on call for level 1. And the way it's currently configured is that it's going to call that person on the phone, it's going to send them an email, and it's going to send them an SMS text message, and then it's going to give them a few minutes. Let's give them 10 minutes to wake up, find their glasses, get their cell phone, look at the message, and call into the voicemail system. And if they don't respond within 10 minutes, then it's going to call them, email, and SMS text message them again and wait 10 minutes. And if nobody listens to that voicemail after 20 minutes, which is 2 tries, then it's going to escalate to level 2. And again, you can go as many escalation levels as you want in here, but that's what this settings is all about. All right, so then the next question is, what are we monitoring? And on this screen is where you specify whether it's a live answer or a voicemail box or a combination of the two. So this field is just a name. I'm not sure why somebody called these things what they did, but this is just a name. Then what group this applies to, and then the IVR associated with this group. Now, this is kind of a tricky thing. What we've done is you create an IVR and you forward your calls to that IVR. And on-call manager is watching to see, much like it watches a voicemail box, it can also watch a digital receptionist, an IVR, to see if there's anybody in that IVR. And as soon as they see somebody transferred to this IVR, it knows, okay, I better figure out who's on call and log them into the appropriate queue. And then this IVR forwards the call to this queue. So this would be a live answer scenario where the call goes to this queue. Now, you know that if you transfer a caller to a queue and there's no one logged into that queue, it's going to immediately fail, right? And go to the destination if no answer, if there's no queues in there. So what On-Call Manager does is as soon as it sees a call hit this IVR, it logs everybody out of the queue that are no longer supposed to be answering calls, and then logs in all the people who are. And then On-Call Manager forces a transfer from this IVR to this queue. And this all takes in the matter of milliseconds to do. So the caller will never know that they hit this IVR. It will happen so fast that as soon as they press 1 for technical support, within milliseconds, they're going to be here in this queue with the appropriate people logged into that queue so that it can start making telephone calls to remote agents. And there's instructions in the manual for how to set up remote agents so that they'll get a telephone call. There is one little sticky wicket, and I am of the view that you don't hide challenges, you address challenges. And that is that when a call goes to a cell phone, and let's presume it's 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody might be a little slow to answer that cell phone because they're sleepy. So what we don't want to have happen is for the cell phone to ring long enough that it goes to the cell phone's voicemail box. So when you set the polling strategy for this queue, you need to make sure that it bounces from one agent to the next faster than the amount of time that it would end up going to the cell phone's voicemail box. And in that way, you can avoid it going to the cell phone's voicemail box. Now, if nobody answers the call in the queue for whatever reason, maybe they're busy on other support calls, etc., then it will adhere to the queue's destination if no answer setting, and you would set that to a voicemail box. And now you're using live answer with a failover to voicemail. As soon as it hits voicemail, then it's going to go and it's going to send emails and SMS, text messages, and call them on the phone. Well, when it calls them on the phone, what is it supposed to say? So here is an IVR that you would set up in the system, and you can have you can create an IVR yourself just by clicking on here, and it'll create an IVR with the correct settings right from within On-Call Manager. So you create this IVR, and then you record a prompt for this IVR, and the IVR might say something like, well, we know that they're calling a voicemail box, and the voicemail box is 4015 in this example. So it might say something like, this is a call from On-Call Manager. There is a customer who has left a support request on voicemail box 8017, transferring you to the voicemail system. And then it transfers them to 999. And the voicemail system says, please enter your voicemail box number. You would type in 8017 because that's what the IVR told you to do. They would then ask for your PIN. You would give the appropriate PIN for that voicemail box, and then it transfers you into the voicemail box and reads to you the first voicemail. As soon as you hear that voicemail, 3CX updates a database that says that this has been heard. And so if this were to escalate, for example, nobody on level 1 caught the call in the queue, nor did they respond to any voicemails, and it escalated up to level 2, then when somebody hears it, we need to notify all of those people who have previously been notified that they don't need to get out of bed. So you're going to have a separate IVR with a prompt that you've recorded, and it might say something like the after-hours support request for whatever this is, the wallboard support request on extension 8017 has been heard, and then it hangs up. So this is how you can leverage both live answer and voicemail. But what if you're like my sister's practice? A doctor never wants to get a straight telephone call from a patient. They want the voicemail to go to a voicemail box so that when the physician listens to that voicemail, they have an opportunity to confer with colleagues or research symptoms or do whatever they want to do, if nothing else, to at least wake up enough that they can have a coherent conversation with the patient. In that scenario, how do we get it to go straight to a voicemail box? Well, you don't need to do this step at all. I assume there's a blank one here. Yeah. Don't need to do this step at all, do you? If you don't need live answer, you can just set these to blank. And then just when they press 1 to leave, when they press 1 for technical assistance, you'll have your IVR routed to extension 4015 directly. So you don't have to fill out the first level queue stuff if you don't need live answer. You just go straight to voicemail, and then it goes and does its thing. Any questions so far? Okay, then we'll keep going. So we've talked a bit about, let's see, what is on general? Yeah, we talked about everything on general. Sorry, my headset shut itself off for whatever reason. We've talked about monitors. What is an admin? Well, we certainly don't want one of the staff who doesn't feel like being on call tonight coming in here and making changes to the schedule so that they don't have to be on call. We want to reserve that to managers, owners, that kind of thing. So when you first turn on call manager, it's going to assume that everybody is a manager. So anybody who logs in can make changes to the calendar, can create people that are resources available to be placed on the calendar, those kinds of things. And that may not be what you want. So you might want to come in here and say, well, Matthew is an administrator. And what this means is that only I can go in and make administrative changes. But there are still some things that employees, non-managers can do, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. This is just additional settings. So this is if you're sending emails, you need a SMTP server. So this is just credentials for sending emails. If you want to include a transcript of the voicemail, you can do that here. For transcripts, and then of course a license key. All right, so that's kind of this stuff. Let's look at events. I made changes and didn't save them, so it's complaining, but that's okay. One of the goals of this whole process is to keep track of what happened and who did what when. And so if you come into the events section, this is essentially a log of what's happened. So I can see all of the calls that came in that were not heard, and I can see all of the calls that came in that were heard. So let's choose an example here. So what I can see from this log is that a new voicemail came in, and it was the caller's telephone number and the caller's caller ID. Whoever did this test, I guess, I don't know who did this test, but the point is that we can see when the call came in and who was notified and how many times they were notified, and ultimately that it was heard, because we see that there's some notes here. So let me show you how that works. If I come in here, I can come in here, and if I had transcriptions turned on, you'd see a transcription of the voicemail here. And then I can add whatever notes I want to this log. So now we can see what's happened. There's a couple of benefits to this log. One is if you have a customer call up and say, you know what, I want a discount on your services because I call all the time and you guys rarely answer within the SLA period. Well, now you can go in and you can find every time that person called, and just put in their phone number, and it will, well, that's not gonna be a very good example because they're all 920, but you get the idea. So all I'd have to do is put in the customer's telephone number here, or the patient's telephone number, whatever, and it would find all of the calls that came in on that person. And then you can see, well, this is what time the call came in here, and this is what time the call was heard. So I can tell whether or not the customer's complaint is accurate, because I can go back and look at the history and see what our SLA is and how we're responding. The other thing that we can do, let's go to heard false. It's going to look very similar. Is I can see when a call came in and who ultimately answered that call. So if it had escalated up to somebody else because Samuel didn't answer the phone, you would see additional rows in here for the notifications that came to Samuel, and then the notifications that came to Matthew, and then to Sarah, and so forth. So now you can tell, well, geez, you know, every time that Samuel's on call, he never hears that voicemail, and he just lets it roll over to somebody else. Which brings up another point, and that is that if you don't feel like being on call and you say, well, somebody else in level 2 can answer it, so you just ignore it and let it escalate up to level 2, in actuality, you're really not off the hook, because when it goes from level 1 to level 2, it's additive. That means that I'm going to add to the list of people that are being notified, everybody in level 1 and everyone in level 2. So by letting it escalate, it doesn't stop your phone from ringing and the SMS text messages and the emails from coming. You continue to get notified even though it's escalated up to level 2. Hopefully that makes sense, what that's all about. All right, so a couple things to note here. Any questions, by the way, before I kind of wrap things up? No questions yet? Okay, then let's move on here with the demo then. What On-Call Manager does for you is it's scalable in cost. It's the same price if you have one group or if you have 20 groups that you want to notify. So unlike an answering service where you pay for each different group that you're monitoring and routing calls for separately, with VoIPTools you don't. And in fact, in the case of my sister's practice, the cost of the entire subscription is less than the cost of paying for an answering service for their practice. You have, in other words, an unlimited number of groups that you can have separate schedules for: pediatrics, orthopedics, internal medicine, ear, nose, and throat, whatever, right? You can also have an unlimited number of voicemail boxes. So unlimited live answer, unlimited voicemail box, unlimited groups. So it's a very scalable solution for low costs. You don't have to tinker with forwarding rules or handing phones to other people or uploading spreadsheets of who's on call to an answering service. You come in, you set the reoccurring schedule, and you're done. With a live answer solution, typically you get with an external service, you typically will get live answer only. In our scenario, you get live answer, and then if nobody does answers with live answer, you can fail over to a voicemail box, and then all the escalation things take place. You have up to 30 levels of escalation. You have multiple channels of notification. The more ways that you poke an agent that's on call, phone, email, SMS, text message, the more likely that you're going to get that notification is going to be noticed. We have security roles. So you have different people that are managing the calendar versus those that are actually on call. You have an audit trail of who did what when, both on the customer caller side and on the staff side. You have the ability to add resolution notes to those calls when they come in. So this is what I did. This is what I found. This is the in status. I can give you an example. A customer calls in at 11 o'clock at night and leaves a message. My server is down. I need somebody to fix it. The on-call agent logs into the voicemail, gets that voicemail, or got a live answer, calls the telephone number left in the voicemail, and it goes to the cell phone's voicemail box. So he waits 15 minutes, tries again, then again, and then again, and eventually gives up and says, you know what, I can't get a hold of this guy, and I got to be to work in 4 hours. I'm going to bed. So the customer shows up at the place of business, and when the owner drives up the next morning, he starts screaming and yelling at the owner that nobody fixed my server. And so the owner goes in and he looks at the resolution notes and says, well, it looks like, yeah, your call did come in at 11 o'clock, and I see Samuel tried to call you back at this specific number. He tried multiple times and finally gave up at 6 o'clock this morning. And then the customer says, oh, that's right. I told him to call my cell phone and it died in the middle of the night. My bad. You guys did what you were supposed to do. I'm sorry for getting upset, that kind of thing. So resolution notes is a very handy thing. Of course, SLA reporting so that you can tell whether or not you're meeting your obligations, and you can check on the employee performance. So On-Call Manager is one of those tools that you just set up and let it run, and it just works. So with that, we're kind of done. Any questions, anyone?
Matthew, there are questions.
No questions. Well, then I guess I've answered all the questions. So I very much appreciate all of you taking a portion of your day.
Came up actually. It says we are currently using the on-call manager and have 5 texts rotating. We are not using live answer, so we have a voicemail setup. The customer presses option 1 and leave a message. The tech will get the call, they miss it, and go directly to some occasions. I'm sorry, I think this question's an incomplete or someone left incomplete.
It sounds like what this person's doing is suggesting how their processes would work. So it sounds like you're.
So.
Oh, okay.
So directly to some occasion, hey Joe, can you please complete the question so maybe Matthew can answer it right away.
Yeah, so let's take the scenario of somebody that doesn't want live answer. They just want to monitor a voicemail box. the call would be routed to an IVR. The IVR makes the determination that it's outside of business hours. So it, well, actually, the inbound rule makes the decision that it's outside of business hours. So it routes to the appropriate IVR. That IVR says, I'm sorry, our offices are currently closed. If this is an emergency and you'd like to speak with an after hours technician, press 1. When they press 1, then the IVR just routes it to an extension that you've set up to be the voicemail box for that group. The voicemail box greeting would say something like, all of our agents are currently assisting other callers. Please leave your name, your number, and a brief message of your issue, and we'll call you back within our SLA period, which is 5 minutes or something like that. Thank you. And then you
Right.
play the beep,
So,
they'd leave the message.
Matthew, we do have Joe who wants to talk to you. Basically, he wants to ask the question straight away because he might have some typing errors. Joe, your mic is enabled. You want to ask questions directly to Matthew if you haven't?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Joe.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
So the way we have it set up, we're a small service industry, and we have several technicians on call, and we rotate them on a weekly basis. So we'll set up a schedule for them to run from Monday to Monday. 9
Hey, Joe,
a.m.
can I interrupt you real quick?
Yes.
Do you currently have on-call manager, or are
Yes,
you
we do.
talking?
Run it on
Okay.
We
Cool.
run it on a 2019 server with 3CX. So it's been great for us. We've been happy with it. But on occasions we have this, and it may be a configuration issue. I haven't been able to get the local company to be able to figure this out. They said it was a bug, but I don't seem to think that's the way. But the way it works is that we set it up. We were not using live call, so it's basically going to a voicemail. It asks the customer calling in to press option 1, and then they leave a message, and then it immediately texts the technician and call the technician. If they miss by answering that call when the call's coming in, it will say, you have an emergency call, press 1 to continue. We press 1, and then it will ask us to put in the extension and then the passcode, and then it will give us the message on a normal call. If they miss it and then just go to the 3CX app and listen to the voicemail, some occasions that call calls constantly, and when you answer it, there's no message there. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure it out. So I have to log into my 3CX server, either stop and start the service on the on-call manager, or I have to reboot the server, and then it clears it, or I have to go and delete all the voicemails. So it's really weird. I think maybe I have something, maybe it's like you were talking about the different levels and how it's progressing, but I haven't been able to figure that nut out. But we love the program. It works. It works great for us for our scheduling. And we went from a antiquated device to this, and it's probably the best one we've ever used.
I'd like to hear that. Well, I will say this, Joe, that with Service Pack 4 of 3CX version 18, they changed how 3CX identifies that a voicemail has been heard. In the past, they created both a WAV file, which was the audio for the voicemail, and a companion XML file. And so what we did is we just monitored for the creation of that XML file. And then if anybody ever changed that XML file, i.e. update the XML file to say that the voicemail had been heard, that was the indicator for us that we should then go in and set all the flags and do all those kinds of things that we need to do to keep track of it. But in Service Pack 4, they eliminated that XML file so that we didn't have the ability to monitor modifications to that XML file anymore. And what they did is they moved it into an internal database. So they eliminated the XML file and took the data that used to be in that XML file and put it into a database. So now we monitor the database. And I could see a scenario where if there was a disconnect between the 3CX server and the on-call manager server, if the communication between those two servers were lost for any reason, we might not get the event that somebody had heard the voicemail, and then it would do as you suggested. It would just keep coming back and saying nobody's heard it, nobody's heard it, nobody's heard it. So let's take a look at that and see, because it will log in a log if the communication between the 3CX server and the voicemail server was down for any period of time. It can reattach or reconnect if that connection between the two servers is lost. But if an event took place during that time that the two servers were not communicating with each other, we'd not know that that the voicemail's been heard, and so it continue to do the notification
it's only
thing.
when we miss the call, like you have your phone sitting in your other room and the emergency call comes through, you're trying to run to get the answer and you miss it, and then you have to go back and you just bring up the 3CX app and you can listen to the voicemail there. But then on occasion, this doesn't happen all the time, but on occasion, it's like it loses that link and it just rings. And then, of course, they're calling me at home and saying, hey, can you reset the server? And I just go in and go to the on-call services in my server under, because we have, and I don't know if it's because we have virtual terminals set up for it, but we set up 2 virtual terminals to run the 3CX tools and the other applications.
So as long as somebody goes into the voicemail box and listens to the voicemail, and it isn't necessary that you respond to the telephone call that you received from on-call manager. We don't care how you get to the voicemail system and listen to that voicemail. As long as you listen to the voicemail, and let's be clear, you can't listen to the voicemail that is an attachment to the email. You actually have to log into the voicemail system and listen to the voicemail there. As long as you do that, it should see that it's been heard and send the notification to voicemail manager, and voicemail manager should say, okay, it's been heard. I don't need to send out notifications.
We'll try that, because I think he may be listening it through the email.
And that won't work.
Yeah,
that won't work. Yeah, because on-call manager receives an event from 3CX when somebody goes into the voicemail system and listens to the voicemail. If they just listen to the voicemail that is attached to the email notification, that doesn't interact with 3CX in any way. And so 3CX wouldn't know that the voicemail had been heard. I hope that's all it is. That'd be an easy solution.
Absolutely. I have one other side question.
Sure.
Is there a way to do multiple escalations? So if you have, like we just have one tech on call for the week. So my thought process was, right now I'm the primary escalation. So if nobody answers, it automatically comes to me. So if by chance something happened to me during that week and I was unable to take that second escalation, could I make a third in there as well?
You can go up to 30 levels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
okay, I'll just need to talk to my company who sold us the 3CX program then, I guess.
Yeah.
Or is it something simple you could show me?
Yeah, so we've got I don't have the right assignments in the groups within 3CX, but you would select the group. So what do you do for a living? What is your business?
Well, we do restaurant and retail point of sale systems. So it's critical when a restaurant system is down, they call in and they,
Gotcha.
we that's one thing I
Well,
like about this.
Technical support is what we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes, technical support.
So let's say, I don't know how your organization is divided, but I assume that not everybody knows everything. So I used to have an IT services company, and so I would have a group of employees that were good at networking, and a
Mhm.
separate group of employees that were good at software, and another group of employees that were good with security. So um, uh, firewalls and load balancers and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you always have those
And
groups.
yeah, so the networking guys aren't going to know the first thing about the software for your restaurant software, right? So you might have an after hours IVR that says something like this. Our offices are currently closed. If this is an emergency and you'd like to talk to a support technician, press 1.
Mhm.
They press 1, and then it would say for networking support, press 1. For software support, press 2. That's how you would have different groups.
Yeah, we currently have two set up. We have one for emergency and one for the next business day. So when they press the emergency one, it calls the on-call tech right away. If he doesn't
Okay.
answer it in 3 rings or whatever, it rolls over to the next guy.
So let's say that this just says emergency. This is the emergency group. And in that group are both Samuel, you see Samuel here, and
Yep.
Matthew here.
Right.
So I would come in here and I would say, let's just pick this. We go to new all day event. We say level 1. We
You're
do
with us?
reoccurrence. You can still hear me?
Sir.
Okay, cool. And then every other week, did you say?
Yes, it's actually every week we have a different tech on call. So it goes weekly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So well then I guess it would be daily every day. I'm not sure how that works.
Basically what I do is I create a all-day event, and what it does, it pops up with the date range. I do the start time the first week, the Monday of the week, the end time of the next Monday of the week, and then I let it roll automatically. And I use that where it says drop down on call 1. I have one built up in on call 2 that I create, and then I let it run. Then I go to the next tech, and he'll start that day, go to the next week. And then I build out that whole week so that I don't have to automatically log in and change it every week. So that's
So basically what you're doing is you're going to set somebody up to be level 1 and somebody else to be level 2 for the same time period.
Yep.
And then then it will call the group of people that are on level 1 first. And if none of them respond within the number of attempts that you've allowed, then it'll escalate to level 2.
Okay, great. That's perfect. That's all I need. That's understandable.
Cool. Anything else?
No, that's it. I really appreciate you guys taking time to listen to me.
All right. Well, to all that have come today, I appreciate your time. I don't see that there's any more questions here, so I'm going to say thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
All right, Matthew. Thank you. Thank you, everyone else. Bye-bye. Have a good one.